the replay. You got it, Nick. You know what we're doing right here?
Yeah, we're doing a video for YouTube. It's going to be live, so you're getting it live.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for taking the time to watch the replay of our YouTube live video. It is cold here. It's like 20 below zero, so the brain is still kind of working a little bit. So we're going to talk today about some of the different things that we can do in 2018 to help us play better golf. So it's going to be kind of an open discussion. So be sure to join our community if you haven't already. You just happen to come across this. If you haven't subscribed already to our US Golf TV channel, be sure to do that, because we're going to talk about a lot of great things. So we're going to get things rolling here in just a few minutes. We're going to give a chance to kind of let this replay here or refresh a little bit, and we're going to go live. Look, here we are. Nick, we are live already. We're rocking and rolling. So one of the things we like to do with our live videos is have a dialogue with those of you who are watching. We're here to help you play better golf. We're here to help maybe create some knowledge, but more importantly, create some discussion. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm PGA Teaching Professional Todd Kolb. I am the Director of Instruction for US Golf TV and also the Todd Kolb Golf Academy. So I've been lucky enough to be a golf instructor for 25 years now and work with everybody from beginner golfers all the way up to touring professionals. So by no means do I have all the answers, but we've got a few answers for you. And then also, if I don't know the answers, I know some pretty smart people who can probably give us those answers. So we're here to help you play. We're going to get a little dialogue going. We've got a poll question going up, Nick. I think we're talking about different ways to improve your golf game.
Yep.
Kind of
what are you going to be working on? What are you trying to help improve the most in 2018?
So we're going to be asking you some of those types of questions. We've got, it looks like we got over 12 people already have jumped on. So we're going to talk about some different things that we can do in 2018 to help us play better golf. So first of all, to get us started, I'd like to hear where people are from. When you log on, just put it in the comments there. Let us know where you're from, because we're hoping you're from someplace warmer, which is probably pretty much anywhere, don't you think, Nick?
Oh yeah, easily.
Like I said, it was 20 below. It took us about 2 hours to get stuff heated up in the bay here. So we're going to talk about some different strategies and things in 2018 that we can do to help us play better golf. And like I said, be sure to put some comments in there about where you're from. Hopefully you're getting in some golf here to start the season out and stuff. So let's go ahead and get started on some of these things. So Nick, let's come over here a little bit. And as we start getting some comments posted up there, then we'll go ahead and we'll answer some of those. So one of the things that we're doing here at the Academy to start the year out is we kind of have what we call like a template. It's something that we use as a baseline to work on what it is that we're doing with our students. So I'm a big believer in that there aren't necessarily rules. I mean, there are certain rules, but we like more preferences. We kind of have certain standards. So I just did some video for our staff here where we had the different things. So we've talked about grip, stance, body positions, takeaway, and the different things that we're looking for when it comes to understanding what it is that we're looking for in the golf swing. So we always start off with the grip, and then we're working into some stance and some body positions and things like that. So as you work into the new season, one of the things that we want to be doing is making sure that we're getting started correctly. So let's talk a little bit about the grip. So Nick, let's have you move over here a little bit. We're still curious to hear where everybody's from. I'm thinking everybody's a little bit bashful. Maybe they don't want to admit that they're...
well, Chris just rubbed it in by saying he's in Orlando, so thanks for that,
somebody's
Chris.
in Orlando? Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, thanks, Chris. We appreciate that. We're going to be in Orlando, actually, Chris, for the PGA show coming up at the end of the month here in about 3 weeks. So we're going to be there. I don't know if, Chris, if you ever gotten a chance to go to the PGA show, but it's a pretty cool deal for golfers. It's a good place to be in January. So we like to talk a little bit about Chris as he gets to go to the PGA show. So hopefully maybe we'll run into him there. We'll be there shooting some video, Chris, and then also meeting with some people on some different products that we like to do reviews of and things like that. But let's dive into the grip a little bit and kind of see what we've got going there. So the grip is not something that's real exciting, but it is an integral part of what it is that...
Alright, this happens every once in a while. It's a little too cold, so our connection got a little bogged down, so we're going to be hopping right back on right now. Here we are.
We're back up and running?
Yep.
There we are. Alright, hey, we got a couple other guys that jump back on.
Yeah, I saw Maurice said hi.
Maurice
I think
is
he's
here.
one of our regulars, actually.
Yeah, we're going to have to do something for Maurice here because he's one of our regulars jumping. And always has good questions. Anthony, From the United Kingdom, Manchester. Nice. Anthony, what's the weather like over there right now? Are you guys doing any, I wonder if they're doing any golfing over there this time of year. That's a place we have not been to. Nick, we should look at going over there to do a video. What do you think, Anthony? Let us know what the weather's like over there this time of year, or what time of the, because of the jet.
We're back again, don't worry guys. Bear with us.
We're up and rolling. All right, so we're talking. So let's dive into some content here. Let's get into the. Let's talk about the grip. So as I said earlier, I used to be a big believer that you had to have a perfect grip in order to play good golf. But the truth of the matter is that I think for the vast majority of people that is true. But there are great players who've had really strong grips or weak grips. I mean, Paul Azinger had one of the stronger grips in golf, and I mean, not only had a great Ryder Cup career, but won a major, and it's been a fantastic. David Duval was #1 player in the world, had a super strong grip, and it worked well for him. So, but let me show you what I like to teach. Let's say you walk into the academy, what's some general things that we like to look for? So the first thing that we look for is what we call the hinge pin. So the hinge pin is basically the ability to hinge the lead wrist. And so for me, I'm a right-handed golfer, so it's my left wrist. So the ability for me to hinge right here is kind of what we call the hinge pin. If the club is in the hands correctly, we're able to hinge that. So let's talk about what that looks like. So we like to position the pad right here. And if you can kind of get it, we're going to position the pad on top of the grip like so. So the pad of the lead hand goes on top of the club there. And then we want to balance it basically in the index finger, kind of through the middle of the index finger there. So we've got this type of look. So when I have that, I have the ability to hinge it correctly, i.e. what we call kind of the hinge pin there. That's an integral part. Now if I have the club too much in my palm, like so, I mean I can still work with that, but it makes it much more difficult for me to hinge the club the way that I want. Now the reason that's important is that when you're able to hinge the club, not only you can do less things with the club face, but it helps you create speed, a lot of different things. And so those are a couple of the key components we look for in terms of underneath, kind of like where the club is positioned in the hand. Now, outside, what we're looking for here is that the lead thumb here, the thumb, is kind of nice and snug against the hand. So we don't want to see any gaps. So I like this look there. I would never want to see something like, we see a lot of looks like so. And you'll notice the gapping and the spacing in there, guys. See that? That's a bad thing. We want no gaps. That would be good. That would be bad. Now the reason that's important is because that creates kind of like a stop at the top. All right, that creates a stop at the top. When this is spaced and gapped there, then the club can kind of fall in between there. All right. So and also as we're going through this, if you got any questions on the grip, be sure to fire them in the comments there. We're getting some good comments. So those are a couple of things that we look for in the lead hand. Let me review that real quick. So we kind of talk about the hinge pin. We want our students to be able to leverage the club. They can do that by making sure the pad is on the top, the thumb's nice and snug. Now in terms of grip, I'd be curious to see what your thoughts are out there, guys and gals, if you're watching. Do you like a strong grip, a weak grip? But basically, this would be a strong grip where we can see a lot of the knuckles on the top there. This would be more of a weak grip. I see great players in both positions. Generally, we teach more of a neutral grip where you can see about 2 knuckles there. Okay, so any questions on that lead hand? Let me take a quick look here and see what else we've got. Where should we go? Played, yes, Dallas, Texas, 25 degrees. I'm freaking out. That's good. It is cold in Dallas. I want them to be in Dallas actually next week. We're working with a couple, with a student, and so hopefully it warms up by that point. Hopefully it warms up. So that's a little bit about the lead hand on the grip.
Maurice actually just asked a question about thumb position.
Okay, would the thumb be down the middle of the shaft? Ooh, great question. Great question. So I like to see, Maurice, I like to see that the lead thumb is slightly to the right of center. So if this would be, I don't know if you can see this, Nick, but if this would be straight down, I like to see it just ever so slightly to the side. I think that's a good spot for it to be. That's a great question. Now on the bottom hand, I like to see it in the fingers like so, okay? Right like that. You can kind of notice we got down there in the fingers. right there, and this, and just a little bit of separation here. This is something that not a lot of people know. Has anybody ever heard of the trigger finger? The trigger finger, all right? The trigger finger is just this little gap, that little separation right there. That's not something that a lot of people talk about in the grip, but really good players will tend to do that. So just a little bit of, they call it a trigger finger, just a little bit of separation right there. And then of course we got some overlap, or you can interlock. I prefer the overlap grip where the pinky just kind of overlaps in there. Now there have been great players. Does anybody know a great player who interlocked? Probably the best golfer of all time. I think he used an interlock. But we prefer the overlap. Now the reason we like the overlap is I think it helps you get the club a little bit more in the fingers. When they tend to interlock, we notice that the grip kind of fits into the palm a little bit. So outside then, as I mentioned earlier, we're also looking for the closed right thumb right there, right? We want that nice and snug there. And then the right hand, the bottom hand for me, covers the top thumb. All right, so that's a lot of information in there. We got a couple questions here. Okay, good. Yeah, we're getting some great. Jack Nicklaus, very good. Chris, yeah, spot on. Jack Nicklaus used the interlock grip. Pretty hard to argue with him. 13 degrees in Syracuse, minus 13 in Syracuse, Nick. All right, I feel your pain. Anthony, I feel your pain. It was minus 22 in our car when Nick and I got out of here today. Oh, good question by Chris. What's the purpose of the trigger finger? So the purpose of the trigger finger, Chris, thank you for asking that, is that it helps you kind of leverage or hinge the club a little bit. So the school of thought is that when there's a little bit of separation right there, it creates kind of like the trigger like on a gun or whatever, and that allows you to hinge the club and leverage the club a little bit. All right, and I think that most good players, if you look, this would be something for you next time you're watching on TV. See if they get a close-up of the grip, see if you can see that. I think that you'll see a lot of your good players will have that in there. So that's a good couple quick questions there in the grip. Let's see, we've got one other one here, and then we'll move on to something else. I find overlap difficult because it makes my hands feel weak in the club, but I haven't given it a true test. Yeah. Okay, good point. Good point. Grip strength, please, from Jason. Jason, good question. When you're talking about grip strength, are you talking about like the pressure, like how tight you grip it? Is that what you mean by strength? 1 to 10. Okay, so this is a good question. Thank you, Jason, for asking that, because we've all heard the phrase of you want to hold it lightly, right? Everybody says hold it lightly or hold it like you're holding a bird, I think, or there was some analogy that I never quite followed that. Maybe one of you guys out there could explain that to me. But here's what I have found. Well, let me say this. What's most important, in my opinion, is that you have consistent grip pressure. Whatever that is, it should be consistent. So let's say, for sake of discussion, that out of 1 to 10, as Jason had there, out of 1 to 10, if I gripped it at a 7, that it stayed at 7 through the whole motion. If I gripped it at 9, I kept the firmness at 9 through the whole motion. I think, to answer your question, Jason, that's what's most important, is that you have a consistent grip pressure. I will say this, in my experience, I mean, I don't have any, PhD research to back this up, other than just literally watching thousands of people hit golf shots, is that most people grip the club tighter than perception would like us to think. So I'm not afraid of somebody grip it pretty tight. I will say this, however, that you want to keep your forearms pretty relaxed and light. So tight grip pressure is fine, relaxed forearms. That's what I look for mostly. Now, here's what I'll do for that. If I think, Jason, somebody's gripping it too tight, and I don't even like to say grip, but there's too much tension, is that I'll have them bring the club up front and just do a few circles like this. Just do some circles. So I can grip, I mean, I'm squeezing the thing as hard as I possibly can in my hands, but my forearms are pretty relaxed. And so I'm still able to move the club. And I think that's what's most, so great question. Thank you for asking that question there on the grip. So we got a couple of good ones there. Okay, talk more about trail hand grip. Yes, anything specific, Chris, that you want us to talk about there? I know one thing I can talk about is strong versus weak, and any other questions you might have there. So the trail hand, right hand for me, when I slide it underneath, I don't know if you can see that there, Nick, underneath, that would be what we would consider strong. If I get it up on top, this would be weak. All right. So strong versus weak. You could also have it more in the palm, which would be bad, versus in the fingers, which would be good. So I like to see the trail hand, the bottom hand, be more in the fingers, and I like to see it be what I would consider relatively neutral, where basically this line right here between my thumb and my hand goes to my trail shoulder. Now I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit also about what I said about the grip. I think there's people who are great golfers who have strong grips, people who are great golfers who have weak grips. If I have somebody walk into the academy here and they're 12, 13, 15 years old, I'm going to teach them a neutral grip. Because I think for the masses, that's the best. If I have a seasoned professional walk in here and they have a guy or a gal and they're 30 years old and they're, you know, they're a good player, they can control their ball flight, I'm going to be pretty slow to change that grip because they're obviously making that work. So I think that's kind of what's important. Okay, here's a good one. How about changing this? Okay, Chris, is there a difference for short irons versus the driver? How about changing grip to change ball flight? I don't think that there's a different grip for different clubs. I like to teach one consistent grip, unless we're talking about obviously putting. Putting would be different, but in terms of irons or driver, no, I don't think there's really any difference there. And then changing your, let's see here, Nick, what do we got over here? Changing the grip to change ball flight. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. So I like to keep if I want to change ball flight, I'm going to mostly do that just through aim, baseline aim, like with my feet and my body, or a little bit of club face movement in my setup. I'm not going to do a lot with my grip. I mean, you could, in the short term, if somebody had a really strong grip, if somebody comes in with a real strong grip, like so, and we move it to a real weak grip, the first couple shots they hit are going to definitely be more to the right than they're accustomed to. And on the flip side, if somebody's got a real weak grip and we make it strong, okay, they're going to probably hit the ball a little bit more left if they're a right-handed golfer than they are. But typically, if I want to purposely change the ball flight, I'll do it more through setup and a little bit of club face alignment at address. I think that's the easiest way to do it versus changing your grip or changing your swing. All right. So some great discussion there on the grip. Let's move on to Nick. Let's see let's move on to stance. Okay, so this is kind of like our little thing here. And earlier, for those of you who are just logging on, we've got a poll question that we put up about what areas of your game you're looking to improve the most in 2018. So be sure to, we'd like to hear from you on that. But let's talk a little bit about the stance. And also be sure to subscribe. Nick's going to be mad at me if I don't tell people to subscribe. So if you haven't subscribed, make Nick's day and subscribe, because then he'll won't harass me when we're done doing our live video. So, all right, let's talk about the stance. So here's some things that I look for in the stance. First of all, let's talk about stance. Let's talk about feet position. We could spend a whole hour on feet position, but basically you want to see the feet about shoulder width. I'm going to move back here a little bit.
There you go.
Good there, okay. I want to see the feet roughly about shoulder width apart. Okay, I think that's a pretty common thing. I think most instructors would agree with that. I don't think you're going to get a lot of debate about that. One thing, though, that I will tell you that you might get a little bit of debate on, and I'm going to share with you my thoughts, is that I like to see the toes flared a little bit. So if this was straight ahead, this would be 0. Nick, now you're going to get me in trouble because my shoes are dirty this morning from walking in the snow. My wife is going to tell me I need to shine my shoes. All right. Point that toe out a little bit, point this toe out a little bit. I like to see a little bit of toe flare. How much? I don't know, 15 degrees, 20 degrees. Does anybody know why we might want to flare the toes a little bit? If you have an answer to that or a thought on that, be sure to put it in the comments. Why we might flare the toes just a little bit, all right? That's important, especially for guys like myself, 48 years old. As we get a little bit older, I think that's better stance. I would agree with that. Oh, there's a good answer. Yeah, Chris, spot on. Spot on. Chris and Colin, thank you very much. Flow better. Fantastic answers. Nick, these guys are smart.
Yeah. That's why they're subscribed to
These guys
this channel.
are smart. Holy smokes. Range of motion, better balance, helps the flow of the swing better all the way through by Devin. Rich, yeah, turn. Chris helps the turn. 100%. Thank you guys. Great answers. Great answers. I see a lot of people that come and they got their feet just squared up. I mean, unless they're super, you know, flexible in their hips and stuff, I don't like that. We point them a little bit, allows the pelvis to turn and the hips to turn a little bit on both sides of the ball. Great, great answers there. All right, so that's a little bit about the feet. I guess we could talk about aim. If you watched any previous YouTube live video we did before Christmas, we talked about how to draw the golf ball and some aim things. So I like to see golfers early on be able to draw the golf ball. I want to see the ball get up in the air high, I like high launch, and I want to see them be able to draw the golf ball. I just think that that's a good way for them to develop early on. Eventually we might change that, but early on. So that's why I'm a pretty big advocate for a slight rightward aim bias. Now this is one of the things I can tell you as somebody who's lucky enough to watch some really good golfers hit golf balls up close, is that a lot of good golfers don't aim perfectly square to the target line. There are some, but there are some who aim to the left, as we talked in one of our last videos that we did, and there's some that aim a little bit to the right. We here early on for our weekend golfers or kids who we're working with, we like to set them up where we have a slight rightward aim bias. So maybe if the normal green, that might be aimed at the right side of the green, or just barely right of it, so they can draw the ball back in. And that allows us to move the path a little bit to the right, help them get the golf ball up in there. So that's a little bit about the feet there. Let me go back here. We got a couple other questions we're going to talk a little bit about. How about the, oh, very good, Devin, thank you. How about heel to toe pressure? Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, now, Nick, I gotta grab something here. Because this is a big one for us. Thank you for asking that question. Who asked that? Devin. Thank you, Devin. Great question. What about heel to toe pressure? Nick, we need to do a whole video on this at some point. We use a swing catalyst here. I don't know, Nick, if you can show this here. We use a swing catalyst. At some point, we'll do a whole video on pressure stuff here. But that's a big part of what's happening in the golf swing. So to answer the question there, I like to see the pressure on the feet be basically pretty centered at the beginning. I like to see it be pretty, so he's asking about toe to heel. I want to see it be pretty centered. So here's the arch right of the foot, okay? So I like to see it maybe just on the front side of the arch, right in like so. And then on the trail foot, Nick, I'm gonna get in big trouble with the mic. You can see fellow golfers how we had snow today. But anyhow, I like to see it about here on the trail foot also. You know, kind of about right in the front side of the arch. Now, as the swing progresses, I want to talk about this real quickly. And then I'm going to talk about this pro stance training aid. As the swing progresses, very early in the backstroke, we want to see that pressure move from here back towards the heel. All right, so it's going to start kind of at the front of the arch, and then early on, it's going to work towards the back part of the right arch, like so. And that's going to help us load the right heel, load the right glute, and really create some power to move forward. So hopefully that answers your question there. I know I've got a little bit out of topic there, but in terms of, but we want to see it pretty balanced, and then early in the backstroke, it's going to work towards the heel. Now, pro stance here. I want to give some props out to my buddy Paul over at Quintic. We use Paul, is overseas, and we've got a Quintic system from him. Paul works a lot with many tour professionals on a variety of things, but primarily he's known for his putting, and he is one smart dude. If you're not following that, check it out. Go to Quintic, check it out. Paul's the lead guy there. Follow his stuff on Twitter and social media stuff. He's got great information. But this is a pro stance we got, and we use this primarily for putting, but when we had that question there, I wanted to bring it out. So this is, basically, it's pretty simple. It's like a little, there's probably like a tube inside. You want me to move back a little bit, Nick?
Maybe just a touch.
Okay, there's a tube inside here, guys, and basically you stand on it, and it kind of gives you a sense of where you're at, and you want to see if you can balance on it so that you're equally toe to heel. This is a great way for you to kind of practice that feeling. So it's called Pro Stance. There's other similar ones out there that you can find, but we use it a lot for putting, but you can use it for full swing as well too. Okay? So that's a little bit, let's see, we've got a couple other questions here, and then we'll move into some other stuff. Oh, fantastic. Chris, how much flex in the knees? Thank you. This is really one of my pet peeves. Here's what I want. If you've ever been told, let's say assuming you're a right-handed golfer. All right, so let me answer the question first of all. Chris, here's what I like to see. I'm not going to give you a specific number, but let's just say we want to see enough knee flex where you feel alive and athletic and ready. Let's just say, for sake of discussion, that my knee flex is 30 degrees. Okay, this would be 45. This would be 0. Let's say it's 30 degrees for sake of discussion. What I want to do is, if anybody has ever been told to keep your trail knee, your trail leg flexed all the way through the backstroke, I want you to give me a shout out here on a comment. So basically what I'm saying is, have you ever read or have you ever been told in a video or through a golf lesson or wherever, where you should keep your right knee completely flexed in the backswing? Okay,
Jason said yeah.
Got one yep for sure already. Anybody else ever heard that? Because this is one of my, Chris, yeah, this is one of the things that I'm pretty passionate about, and I want to dive into this. Thank you, Rich. And I'm not going through this I don't want this to turn into a, he said, she said type argument deal, but I want to explain this a little bit because I think it's important. Yeah, there's another one in golf magazines. All right. So, Nick, can you go from face on? So let's talk about this, guys, and why I'm pretty passionate about this. So, when the trail knee is flexed, okay, one is it restricts hip turn. All right, it restricts hip turn, and I don't think that that's good. I think if you look at the best players in the world, and I'm going to grab a picture here in a second of Sam Snead, you'll see that they turn their hips. You look at Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Lee Trevino, Sam Snead, their hips are rotating, they're turning. And when the trail knee is completely flexed, that limits the hip turn. So that's number one why I don't like that. All right, especially as we get older, we lose flexibility. All right, number two is that I'm a big believer that at the top of the backswing, that the pressure should be moving towards the right heel so that you can kind of load the right hip and load the right glute. When the trail knee stays flexed, that's very difficult to do. That's the second reason. Okay, the third reason is that when the trail knee stays flexed, the pelvis stays completely level. Okay, and I don't like that either, because then the shoulders stay level and the swing gets really flat. The rotation of the shoulders and the hips get really flat. I don't like that. So here's what I think it should do. Going back to earlier, somebody asked about how much flex there should be. I said there should be 30 degrees. At the top of your backswing, there should be just less than 30. All right, so let's just say it's 15. So I go from 30 to 15. Now when I go to 15, right away I can feel I've loaded in the right glute. I can feel the pressures work towards my heel, and also my pelvis, my right side, my pelvis is higher. That's going to allow me to stay more centered in my turn, and it's going to help my pivot, and everything's going to be better. So, fantastic question there. I just gave you three kind of off-the-cuff reasons why I would never, ever tell somebody to keep their trail knee flexed. I don't think, should it straighten out? I'm not advocating that, but there are people who do that. One of them is a lefty who, well, there's two lefties who do quite a bit of it, who won Masters. Bubba Watson, I mean, his trail leg is almost completely locked out or straight. I'm not advocating that, but I see more of that in great players than I do where it stays completely flexed. So great question on that. Hopefully that makes sense. We didn't dive too much into there. I've been told to soften my knees. Oh, I think that's pretty good. Randy, I like that. Don't you feel flex to push from the ground? Okay, good, Chris. Yeah, all right. So let's talk about that. So here's what I like to see, right? I'm just going to walk through what I'm in my head, all right? So I'm at 30. top of backstroke, I'm at 15. In transition, we're gonna do a video on the if you want to see us do a video, leave a comment on the transition, because I think, Nick, we could do a whole hour on transition. I literally think the transition is the moment of truth. Everybody talks about impact being the moment of truth. Impact is like a byproduct of everything else. The moment of truth is transition. So anyhow, 30 start, right guys? 15, and then, yes, it goes back to 30. 30, 15 top, 30. Now, I did an Instagram and a Twitter post. If you're not following me, hopefully you follow me on Twitter at my handle just at Todd Kolb Golf, or on Instagram also. I did a video of a young gal shooting baskets, shooting free throws. She was shooting baskets, and although she was shooting baskets, which was great for her basketball, but we were actually, believe it or not, she didn't probably even realize this, but we're working on her golf swing. Because the ground is a great source of power, much like it is in any other sport. When you shoot basketball, you know, right-handed, you're here, you go down, okay, you go back up. In the golf swing, the same thing can happen. So I'm 30, I'm 15, and then I'm back down to, let's just say 30 for sake of discussion. I know those numbers might not be exactly. And then boom, then I can push off that and extend, and that movement helps me create a lot of speed. So hopefully that makes pretty good sense to you guys. We might have dived a little too deep in there.
Sounds like we want to do the transition.
We're going to do transition for sure.
That's for sure.
We're going to do transition for sure. Okay, so I got to finish up a couple other things here before we got to go in the setup here. So we talked about feet, knees, where the bounce is on the feet. Okay, let me give you. Okay, let me give you one other thing. 60-40 is another thing we like to start. So you've heard this before if you follow my stuff and our stuff here at US Golf TV. You've heard that we like a 60 front, 40 trail split. So 60, so we're a little left side heavy, lead side heavy. 60 left, 40 right. Now, the reason I like that is because golf is a dynamic movement. Okay, it's not static. There's movement, it's rhythm, it's flow. So when we start in, we're 60 left. We can push off the left. Okay, I can push off the left and get into the right heel. If I'm already 50-50 or even worse, I'm 60 on the back, 40 on the front, I've got nothing to push off. In golf terms, we like to call that unweighting. Unweighting. All right, and if you look at, if you don't believe me, if you want to see somebody who does this, look at Henrik Stenson. Okay, I mean, that guy, I mean, he controls his ball. I mean, he's a fan. I mean, I've never watched him up close, but just watching on TV, obviously, I mean, the guy can play golf, all right? But watch him. He really goes from front to back. And if you look at most good players, even I think Jordan Spieth, maybe a little bit, he's a little left heavy and then work to the right. I mean, just a couple things to think about. So it's a little bit of a 60-40. All right, let's see if we've got... okay, how much do you get your hips rotated forward before impact? Left knee turn versus pushing off right. Okay, this is good. These guys, man, they got some great questions. Left knee turning versus pushing off right foot. Ron, thank you for asking that. We're going to do a whole video on how to create more speed. These are great questions. Thank you guys for asking these. Chris asked, ball position for all irons the same. Let's answer that. We got a couple other things on hips. All right. I like to see the ball position basically just slightly forward of center for my iron. So what I'm looking at is where's the ball in relationship to my body, not so much in terms of my stance width. All right, so where's the ball in relationship to my body? So I like to see it for most irons pretty much off my lead eye, kind of where the logo on your shirt would be. Okay, and part of ball position, I don't think, part of ball position, a lot of it depends on how people pivot and how they move, so there is some variables there, but generally speaking, with an iron, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to put my feet together. I'm going to separate left foot and then separate right foot, something like so. They're going to be relatively equal. The ball is going to be just slightly forward of center for most of my iron shots. With my driver and those types of things, it's going to move a little bit more forward. So, Nick, what do you think? We got time for maybe one or two more things? Earns the same club. Yeah, fantastic. All right, so just to do a recap here, guys, this has been fantastic. Thank you for the, we love, this is kind of how Nick and I plan these. We have one thing we want to talk about, but mostly what we want to do is we want to interact with you. We want to hear what you have questions about, how we can help you out. So today we just talked a little bit about, we talked quite a bit, I should say, about the grip. We talked a little bit about the feet, kind of how we get stood up, stand, and just trying to get 2018 started in the right direction so that we can help you play better golf. And we got some great ideas about some things that we can talk about moving forward. So be sure to answer the question on the poll that Nick posted. We always like to see those. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and on Instagram, not only US Golf TV, but also myself, Todd Kolb. And we want to hear from you. Ask your questions, fire away, and we're here to, like I said, help you play better golf. So thanks for watching, and we will be seeing you next time. So until then, stay out of South Dakota because it's really cold right here, and get down to some place like Orlando or wherever where it's nice and warm and get some golfing. So until next time, we will see you hopefully on the golf links and hopefully a little bit warmer.